Well, until now we have only paved the way, and we have made no progress. Now I will try to go ahead. My suggestion is to develop an already known external proposal according to which philosophy is a cultural activity that has something to do with science, with art, and with religion. That is, we have three fundamental cultural activities: science, art, and religion. Philosophy, in its turn, is a kind of derivative cultural activity whose materials, methods, and aims are in some measure taken from science, art, and religion. Philosophy is like an amalgam or, or the opera. The opera is a cultural form derived from plot, music, and poetry. Here it is. We have a triangle with three corners: scientific corner, artistic aesthetic corner, and a religious mystical corner. And philosophy is here. Anyhow, the triangle. It seems we can classify philosophers within the triangle, more or less near to science. Outside are Darwin or Newton, scientists, and inside are Quine, Carl, Schlick, and others. And in the corner of religious corner, a mystic like Böhme is outside, but a philosopher like Meister Eckhart is inside, and also Hegel is somewhere near to mysticism. And on the inside of art, you have outside Hölderlin, a poet, philosophers, and inside Nietzsche, a philosopher, poet, or Novalis, very near to art. But we have in the middle Kant, Plato, Aristotle, also much more Plato. But you can see this thing somewhat, in a somewhat different way, but it is more or less so. It's not something. And you can find our traditions that are in some corner of the, for example, the corner of science. Near to this corner is the Anglo-American tradition. Near to the mystic corner is the German tradition, Hegel and so forth. And near to the artistic corner is the French new tradition that has to do with a kind of literature, and the French literature were very important. Now, we'll try to see how philosophy is related with each of these three cultural practices. Philosophy versus science. Philosophy can be seen as a kind of proto-science, what can be speculatively made before all sciences are made possible. This is somewhat from Wittgenstein, I believe. He wrote something so in the philosophical investigations. Philosophy is the cradle of sciences, from Canning, but others said the same. Austin wrote this view in a very beautiful metaphor. Philosophy, he says, is the initial central sun, seminal and tumultuous, that from time to time shows off some portion of itself to take station as a science, a planet cool and well regulated, progressing steadily towards a distant final state. This happened long ago, he says, at the birth of mathematics, and again at the birth of physics. Only in the last century we have witnessed the same process once again, slow and at the time almost imperceptible, in the birth of the science of mathematical logic, show the joint labors of philosophers and mathematicians. Austin himself wished to develop a branch of science born from philosophy and called by him theory of speech acts, which was published after his death in the classic work with the title How to Do Things with Words. This grammatic of interactions between speakers is taught today in the linguistic courses. We can see the relationship between philosophy and science when we consider the birth of Occidental philosophy under the Presocratics. We can see it is a characteristic of that philosophy that was the replacement of the explanations of natural phenomena by means of principles like water, fire, air, pain, numbers, atoms, instead by means of the intervention of gods. Important is to note that this was only possible because they already knew rudiments of scientific explanations derived from their knowledge of mathematics, geometry, and some empirical knowledge of astronomy and engineering, taken particularly from the Egypt. They could obviously not establish scientific laws, but they could produce something conjectural or speculative with a form of science like those principles. They tried to replace the mythological explanations of phenomena by some kind of proto-scientific view. Maybe the best example is the suggestion that the universe would be constituted by atoms, invisible and indivisible particles by Democritus and Leucippus and later by Epicurus. They could not prove their existence, but they could produce speculative ideas, the form of a theory. Another example, not only the atomic ideas, example was given by Karl Popper. Anaximander suggested that the Earth was a dish floating under the stars and because of this incapable to fall to one or to the other side. Popper says that in this way Anaximander was anticipating the ideas of gravity and of inertia. Auguste Comte developed a theory that supports the view suggested above. According to Comte, there are three evolutionary stages. One, the religious. Phenomena are explained by means of anthropological projections. The second was the metaphysical stage. The explanation were by principles, ambiguous principles that had something from the anthropomorphic religious explanation and something from the positive scientific explanation. The third stage would be the positive of science of explanation based upon observation of nomological regularities. In reality, different sciences intermingle their stages, but this does not matter to us now. So you have the schema religious stage, explanation by divinities, metaphysical stage, explanation by personified abstractions, powers, essences, and the third, the scientific stage, explanation by means of laws. In the metaphysical stage, the explanation was not given by divinities, but by natural powers, essential properties, abstract entities. These entities are personified abstractions, like vital spirits. For Comte, the metaphysical stage was necessary because only by means of it human mind would achieve the force to persist observing until reaching the scientific stage. If we consider the principles of the Presocratic philosophers, we must give Comte some reason. They were in the middle way between mental and natural entities, either being both or being the negation of both. Not only water, fire, air, being atoms, the forces of love and hate, are under the pre-Socratic principles, but also Plato's ideas, Aristotle's primo morto, Locke's hidden substances, Spinoza's God, Kant's think in itself, the transcendental I, Hegel's absolute, Wittgenstein's unspeakable, work or as metaphysical principles or concepts. However, these words would express dirty concepts which take their meaning from others. However, it is important to see that this does not explain the philosophical analysis of ordinary concepts like knowledge, truth, thought, justice, freedom, freedom of will, perception, identity, and person. These words point to clear concepts that have a difficult, implicitly learned grammar. Objections from Anthony Kenny in his study on Aquinas. Philosophy, central domains like metaphysics, he says, theory of meaning, ethics, are at the service of overviews, Wittgenstein's übersichtliche Darstellungen. They will always remain philosophical, he thinks. Answer: why not an overview based on science? 2. Maybe this only seems impossible due to the present often reductionist concepts of science, like Popper's limitation of science as consisting of theories that resist refutation by experience. Here I propose we apply a more adequate definition of science due to John Zeman. It is a very wide, extremely wide definition. Science, he says, is consensualizable knowledge. Scientific theories are those that, at least in principle, can find agreement among specialists concerning their truth. This is a very wide concept of science, which seems to cover anything we usually call science. A community of ideas must satisfy Habermas' conditions of adequateness of truth. I must add, for example, there should be no pressure except the pressure of the best arguments. People must have as aim to achieve truth, and they must be competent in this community of ideas, similarly competent, and so on. Zeman's concept opposes that of philosophy, which has a necessary condition to be a non-consensualizable form of knowledge. This is where we can get the right opposition between science and philosophy. Certainly, the results of science also demand methodological criteria of objectivity appropriated to each science, which are assumed by the Society of Ideas. And here we have room to the philosophies of particular sciences, for example, physics. So we have philosophy and science. Philosophy is a kind of proto-scientific. We can conceive this as a proto-scientific activity, but we get only non-consensualizable knowledge. But we can hope that one day what we now consider as science, as philosophy, will be consensualizable knowledge, and so scientific in Zeman's sense. We can also, to some extent, grasp the relation between philosophical and scientific activity as presented in the triangle. There should be a direction from the basis to the top of the triangle, because the artistic, aesthetic, and religious mystical traits decrease their roles insofar as philosophy gets near to science. As some said, the tragedy of philosophy is that always that they get something really that they can say it's true, they lose this for some science.